Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Charles Hamaker joined as always by Bel Garcia here. We are in the second week now of June, and as everybody will complain, the rain continues to pour here in the city. But when we get into the August months and it's really hot and my farmer's tan continues, I won't necessarily look back at these June days as too bad. But, with that being said, things continue to be busy here. With the Mariners having a frustrating homestand to begin. We're getting closer to Seahawks training camp starting. The Storm beginning their longest road trip of the season. Up to a good start. The Sounders have a game tomorrow. The Rain, some mitigating results. I can't complain. And then our favorite, as you can see here, our favorite of the week, Seawolves had a very nice week, but we'll have to get that in their segment. So with that being said, we'll head over to Seahawks here, and Bell will take that right away.
Yeah, and just a couple of notes here in terms of the Seahawks. DK Metcalf has not been present at minicamp. He continues to rehab from foot surgery, and he is doing that in LA, so no need to panic there, guys. But of course, we know that the contract talks have not yet resulted in a new deal for Metcalf, so a little bit of panic. But he would also be punished for not showing up to minicamp. On the 8th, it was announced that he will be fined more than $93,000 if he misses all 3 days of mandatory minicamp. And one thing that I skipped over here for the 7th, the preseason times have been announced. Week 1, the Seahawks will face the Steelers on August 13th at 4 p.m. Week 2 versus the Bears on August 18th at 5 p.m. And that one is being broadcasted on ESPN. And week 3 at the Cowboys on August 26th at 5 p.m. Rolling along here on the 8th, also the team restructured Shelby Harris's contract. The move frees up $3.3 million in cap space for the Seahawks. What, you thinking they're planning on something like that?
I'd have to think that goes towards DeKalen. If it doesn't, I don't know what it would be, because I know they're not strapped for the cap right now. But considering that you inherited Harris's contract in the Wilson trade, right? He came that way. That's how he was packaged. That's the box that he came in. I figured that's got to be some leeway towards DK. I don't know if there's anything
a portion
else
of it, right?
Yeah. So that's what I think. I think that's where the direction it's heading towards is.
That's a positive direction to look ahead for anyway. So moving on here on the 9th, Pete Carroll has provided an injury update on running back Chris Carson. He has not been medically cleared to return, but has a big assessment coming up in 2 weeks. Carson is facing a potentially career-ending neck injury. Are you concerned considering that he technically hasn't been medically cleared?
Yeah, because that injury was suffered. It wasn't like an end of the season thing. I think it was like mid-year, earlier in the year. So yeah, to be all the way back then and to not even know if you're cleared yet, let alone, it's not like we're talking about, he's not able to do a certain drill. He's not even been cleared to touch the field yet.
Yeah.
Or do football activity. I don't know if I think he is rehabbing, obviously, to an extent, but like football activity, he's not joined the team.
Right.
So I think it's a little concerning, but also just, at the end of, like with a neck injury, you got to prioritize your life here, because say he works really hard to get back, which Pete Carroll says worked really hard to, he's working really hard. Say he does work really hard to get back and he takes a wrong hit. You're paralyzed. I just don't mess with neck stuff. So it would suck at the end of the day if that's what ends his career, but as long as he's still able to make that choice,
right,
not having to have that decision made for him would be best, So it's going to be interesting, but at the end of the day, whatever is best for Carson is the best road to go down.
Right. And I was going to say that I think we wish the best for him as a person rather than just as a football player. So hopefully there's some good news there, but we also, again, hope the best for Carson. So moving on here, 4 players could potentially miss the start of training camp. Safety Marquise Blair, cornerback Trey Brown, linebacker Ben Burke-Hervin, and linebacker John Radigan. All 4 suffered season-ending knee injuries last season. Any final notes before I move on to league news here?
It's tough with the knee injuries there, because obviously Trey Brown is somebody that had a really good year when he got into the game, and you'd like to see him take that sophomore jump. But you got to, missing training camp can be really important.
Yeah.
Marquise Blair is a guy that I really liked when he was a rookie. He's a guy that flew around the ball, hit really hard, just had good instincts. I think I remember in his first preseason hit a really good hit. He got flagged for it, but it was like, whoa, this guy can hit. And he suffered, I think, season-ending injuries in the years that he's been in the league. So hoping that he's able to make that turn. But just at the end of the day, you want to go into training camp healthy, and that's kind of what we've just looked at. So just hoping that, good health as we head into this, continue the month of June, but then when we come back for it in July with training camp.
For sure. Moving on to some league news here. On the 7th, the NFL is trying to grow football in Africa. The league will host football camp in Ghana later this month, and it will be hosted by former New York Giants defensive end O.C. Umenyiora. Debo also is expected at minicamp. Despite requesting a trade, the wide receiver will be with the team for mandatory minicamp. So, who knows? Maybe that moving into a positive direction for the 49ers.
Boo. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see how that plays out, because not only do they have Debo, not being happy with his situation, but then there's also Garoppolo and their weird
we want him, we don't want him.
Yeah, I want to be here. So I don't know what their deal is with that. And then just to wrap the day, what is that, the 9th? That was the 7th, pardon me. The 7th up, the New York Times had their own investigation in relation to Deshaun Watson. A new report found that the quarterback met with 66 women for massages over a 17-month period, and the Texans enabled alleged sexual misconduct. So more and more news continues to come out about Watson. At the end of the day, we've set our part on it. I don't want this guy in the league, let alone probably not behind bars.
Yeah.
So,
I think I read that they also had NDAs for the massage appointments. Yeah. So moving on here. On the 10th, the Rams have continued to add to their threat here on offense. Cooper Kupp signs an extension. Kupp and the Rams agree to a 3-year extension to stay with the Rams, keeping him in LA for the next 5 years. And that is a $110 million extension. And where do these guys continue to get this money to pay these guys like this?
Like you and I were talking about before we started here, they have a really good front office to be able to manage all of this. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, you keep a guy like Kupp lined up after having, I think he was Offensive Player of the Year last year in the NFL. And just keep a guy that's really talented, that's a big help to this offense, and is a pain in the behind to have to play against.
Definitely.
So how they do it, don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Well, we'll continue to see him in those division games, unfortunately. Moving on, Jack Del Rio was fined $100K. Current Washington Commanders defensive coordinator was fined for his recent remarks regarding January 6th. He tried to compare the riots of January 6th and Black Lives Matter protests, and the fine money will be donated to the U.S. Capitol Police Memorial Fund. Looking ahead here, I think we've had this on the schedule for a while. Late July NFL training camp. And we will move on to our Mariners now.
Yeah, so it feels like, at least for the past few weeks, it's kind of been somewhat of a, well, no, not I guess for the past few weeks. The past few weeks have been good because they've been winning series.
Right.
This one's kind of a mixed bag. We head into it. The Mariners had a road series down in Houston to wrap up their little road trip, and then they came back to begin an 11-game in 10-day homestand back here at T-Mobile Park. So we'll go back to that Houston series starting on the 6th, a 7-4 win down in Houston. That was the day where the benches cleared, and we'll get to that in team-related news. But Seattle would win that game. Player of the game, catcher Cal Raleigh. Raleigh going 2 for 4 with a run and 4 RBI. So Cal really continuing his uptick and just doing better since the time that Tom Murphy was placed on the injured list and Cal was called back up. June 7th at the Astros, unfortunately losing game 2, 4-1. Player of the game, kind of an interesting pick here. Abraham Toro. He went 0 for 4, but he did drive in the only run for the Mariners in that game. On the 8th, the Mariners would win the series 6-3. Player of the game, catcher Cal Raleigh. Raleigh going 1 for 4 with a run and 2 RBIs with a 2-run homer. So Raleigh continues to be effective regardless of, 1 or 4 or not, whatever. He's been impactful there and continues to just be better than he has been earlier in the season. So that was, actually, because we're on the subject of that series, I feel like we should actually talk about that. So it's no secret when you play a team in your division as often as you do, there will probably be some history between you two, right? If you look at it last year with Houston, the Mariners doing a lot better record-wise against them than they have in years before. The comeback, they were down what? I think they won a game 11-7 against Houston, where they were down 7-0 at one point. Dylan Moore hits a grand slam. The Mariners were able to win that game. There was a big trade between Kendall Graveman and Abraham Toro. Graveman had been having a really great year before then. There was a lot of outrage. And then there was a game actually where Graveman was in the pitch. The bases were loaded. Toro was up. Toro hits I think it was a grand slam. It was a homer regardless, but there were a lot of moments. There's always going to be a lot of moments with Houston, right? And so in last week's Houston series back at home, well, I guess 2 weeks now, right? Kyle Lewis was drilled in the head with a ball. He's still dealing with concussion symptoms. We don't know when he'll be back from that. But there's just keep that in mind, right? Because we go to this game on the 6th, and I believe Ty France was actually hit with a pitch, and Ty is no secret to being hit with pitches. Since the start of 2021 has been hit, I believe, 42 times now, which is the most in Major League Baseball by far. So he gets hit. Someone says something, and then the bench is clear. Scott Servais comes out. Jesse Winker comes out like a heat-seeking missile. And it wasn't like there wasn't any punches thrown, but as you can see here, they definitely got together.
And it was Servais and Lopez just going back and forth.
There were a lot of bad words that were said.
Oh, I'm sure.
I just remember seeing it. Just a lot of the F word was used quite a bit.
I didn't understand what started that because France obviously gets hit. So did they not, from their angle, they just couldn't see the hit?
It was that, and then there was I think he got hit in the back, and the home plate umpire didn't see it at first, so I don't think he was going to call it, and Servais was upset with that. And then I remember Eugenio got a ball that was thrown near his head.
He did,
and
he
that didn't help. I don't remember. I might be blanking on the memory of I think the fight was tie actually.
It was right after that tie play.
And then so Eugenio almost gets thrown at. Hector Neris, the pitcher, gets thrown out of the game for that. And then I think the next step at was Julio. Julio hits a homer to really cement that game, which that was a wild,
nice one.
Great composure for him. But that was a fun game. But the backlash of that scuffle between the Mariners and the Astros. So Houston had 3 people disciplined. 5. There were 3 different ways that they were disciplined. Hector Neris was suspended 4 games for throwing at he hit Ty, and then he almost hit Eugenio. Manager Dusty Baker was suspended 1 game and fined. And then Joe Espada, Omar Lopez, and Tony Snitker were all fined for Houston. On the Seattle side, Scott Servais was fined. So it was interesting down there in Houston. And then whenever you play Houston, it's going to get interesting. But I feel like the next series we see them, we might see some more fireworks.
And this was the Sage in the Clubhouse series, right?
Yeah. So in case you didn't see it, members of the media that travel with the team tweeted how Mariners legend Mike Cameron, who's actually been around the club for a few days now. I just saw him in the press box yesterday. Was burning sage in the clubhouse to get the bad mojo out of the clubhouse. So, I mean, it worked for that series. So we'll see how it works going forward. But yeah, that was an interesting story to read about. But anyway, so they win that series, and then they come home to play Boston. So this one is tough. So they start, as I said, an 11-game homestand in 10 days, featuring a doubleheader.
4-series win streak.
Yes, and you say, hey, maybe we can win 5. Something you haven't won 5 series in a row since I think it was 2019. June 10th versus the Red Sox. That Friday is a 4-3 loss. They were coming back, just weren't able to cap it off. Player of the game, left fielder Jesse Winker, going 1-for-5 with a run and 2 RBIs, hitting a 2-run homer in that game. Winker already also had a really good catch in that game. And so I was like, hey, maybe that can sort of juice him up. I'm hoping maybe. We'll see. June 11th versus the Red Sox, a 7-6 win. So Seattle was able to complete the comeback in that one. Player of the game, center fielder Julio Rodriguez. I went with Julio just because of his homer early on. Boston went ahead early in the first inning, and then it's like, shoot, you're down already. You need to answer. And they were able to answer. Julio, well, that was his homer was in the second inning, but I believe he got on base in that first inning too.
Yeah.
Julio went 2-for-5 with 2 runs and 2 RBIs. And then June 12th versus the Red Sox, unfortunately, a 2-0 loss, only mustering 1 hit. Normally with shutouts, I always say no player of the game, but Robbie Ray went 7 innings, 3 hits allowed, 0 runs, and just a really good performance. I don't know. It's just all of those games are close.
Mm-hmm.
The 1 hit is unacceptable to me, at least. I think if you want to win any game, 1 hit is unacceptable, let alone playing who you're playing against, a team that can hit up and down the lineup. And your pitcher, as I mentioned with Ray, going 7 innings pitched and not allowing a run. With the Boston series, you see them being close, failing to complete the comeback in game 1, coming back in game 2 like they did, being down by 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th, giving up a homer in the top of the 9th to give Boston the lead. What did you, as someone looking on the outside in, what did you see from that? What did you gather from that?
So it was interesting because after that June 11th game where they did get that comeback, it gave me hope for the next game. And I thought, oh, they're going to come out guns blazing. Like it's going to be the exact same energy. And it was like they gave all they could to that second game and had nothing left. So that was, a little disappointing. It's also, like you said, 1 hit is unacceptable. And with how the guys are performing now, it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I said it in one of the, I think it was the last game, that June 12th game in the article there. If you look at the 3 main position player acquisitions in Winker, Suarez, and Frazier, they've all had their moments where whether it be some span of the time or longer or shorter, where they've been good. Frazier, and I think the first homestand, and I think one of the other homestands played really well. Batting wise, he's just a guy that can get hits. He's not a power guy. He's a guy that can get hits, get on base. Suarez he's looked at as a slugger, and in recent weeks he's been playing better.
He has.
Right. There's just some at bats I need him to be better. And then Winker, just looking for that form. He was really bad against lefties last year, and he's doing better against lefties this year. It's just, you need these guys if you want to be a consistent offensive team, let alone good. Just be consistently good, game in and game out. You need more consistent production from those guys, because outside of those guys, your lineup is your position group is mostly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, gonna need some turnaround. Again, we've talked about this before. I don't know how much of this is hitting staff. So with that being said, we'll move over to players of the week here. You went with Cal Raleigh. I don't blame you necessarily, but what was the overall motivation for that?
He took the lead back twice in that first game against Houston, I believe. So he came up big in that game, and it seems like he has just a different confidence and a different energy going out there. The Mariners are 8-0 when he has a run, I believe. Yeah. So he's hit on 5 of his last 7 games. So definitely improvement. And like I said, it felt like he really swung the momentum there against the Astros series. So I couldn't not go with him.
Yeah. And like I said, well, I didn't say this on air, but something that's important, because Raleigh was your top catching prospect for years. He was called up last year, has relatively struggled up to the last sort of span he's been on. But if he's able to be consistent and just be better, even if he's able to hit at the 250 line with what he's done, the 250 average is what he's had in the past 7 days. That's fine. Just be serviceable, because for a while, I mean, outside of Omar Narvaez was good. He was solid. But outside of like Mike Zunino, it's been a while since the Mariners have had a really I can look at the catcher and be satisfied with who's there day in and day out. And that's what you want to be able to do. Obviously, want to do that at every position, but that's a key there, right?
Yeah.
So I don't blame you one bit for that. I went with JP just numbers-wise in 24 at-bats, 9 hits, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 2 RBIs, 11 total bases, 4 walks, 2 stolen bases, a 375 average, a 464 on-base percentage, a 458 slugging, and a 923 OPS. So you look at it, I mean, 375 average. Funny, the 2 middle infielders, him and Frazier are guys that are not power guys, but they're going to get on base, and that's all that really matters. Just the issue with the Mariners is scoring those guys that have been on base.
Yep.
So, we don't need to rehash that. We've
we
gone over that. In terms of injury-related news, on the 9th, General Manager Jerry DiPoto said that he expects both relief pitchers Ken Giles and Eric Swanson to return to the roster this homestand. Swanson has done so. We'll get to that in a second with team news, but he said that he would be surprised if both aren't back by the end of this homestand. So looking over to team-related news, as I mentioned with Swanson, the team reinstated him from the 15-day injury list on the 10th. As a corresponding move, left-handed pitcher Anthony Mashevitz was sent to AAA Tacoma. And then on the 11th, the team reclaimed infielder Kevin Padlow off of waivers from San Francisco. If you don't remember, he was designated for assignment a few weeks ago. No, I think he was traded actually to San Francisco. Well, designated for assignment and then traded to San Francisco for cash considerations. And then so as a corresponding move to that, the Mariners designated relief pitcher Drew Steckenrider for assignment, which is interesting only because of the year that Steckenrider had last year. But then this year he's just been total different, just not much better. Not much better. He's been way worse. And he's unvaccinated, so he couldn't join the team in Toronto when they played the Toronto series. Do you want to take a look at these league notes here? So go through this first one, and then I'll tell you a funny thing to add on to that.
Okay.
Because there's something else with that.
All right. On that first one here on June 7th, the Angels have fired Joe Madden. Anaheim manager fired amid 12-game losing streak, third stint with Angels. He's been with the team since 2020. Madden reportedly surprised by firing. No finger pointing. Dismissal surprised him a lot.
And so the thing to add with Joe Madden's firing was that apparently on the day that he was fired, he had a mohawk cut into his hair to try and help with the bad mojo, obviously, around the losing streak.
Mm-hmm.
And he was fired before the team could see it.
Oh.
So he was fired. The team couldn't see it. That went to waste. So I don't know. I thought
you think he kept it?
I don't know. I was looking for a photo of it. I couldn't find it. I just thought that was comedic.
Yeah. Moving on here on June 9th, trouble for the Orioles. There is currently a lawsuit between the Angelos family that alleges that John Angelos is considering moving the Baltimore Orioles to Tennessee.
Don't buy it. I don't buy it. I think it would be really hard to move Baltimore to Tennessee, let alone move them at all. So
yeah,
quickly, I don't buy it.
And the Angels end their historic losing streak. Anaheim's losing streak ends at 14 as the team beats Boston. This is the franchise worst streak. And then also for the 9th, the top umpire alleges discrimination. Angel Hernandez alleges that MLB altered internal evaluations to prevent minority umpires from being promoted. That is very disappointing.
Yeah, very disappointing and really bad for a sport that, again, continues to try and grow, right? I mean, you look at how it compares to some of these other major sports in the NFL and the NBA. So you need more. So looking ahead for the Mariners, as I mentioned, 11 games in 10 days. It's a lot.
That sounds, my brain can't comprehend the 11 and 10.
just the doubleheader. So Seattle sits at a 27-33 record, fourth in the AL West still, but only a couple games back from Anaheim, which sits at second. So starting today, June 13th, versus the Twins, a 3-game series, 7:10 p.m. Pacific time. The 14th versus the Twins is also a 7:10 start. Then June 15th is a matinee game at 1:10. June 16th through 19th is a series against the Angels. That's 5 games.
It's a lot of the Angels.
The
that we're seeing.
16th, yeah. Oh, yeah. And this is the first time that you're playing Anaheim. So it'll be interesting to see how the Mariners take care of that, especially coming off that losing streak. But June 16th and 17th are both 7:10 starts. June 18th is a 1:10 start for the first game of the doubleheader. That is the Juneteenth game. The Mariners will be wearing their Seattle Steelheads uniforms. I don't know if there's a giveaway for that game. I think there's the next day. And then the second game of the doubleheader is scheduled for 7:10, which is going to be a long day. It's going to be a long day. And then so wrapping up that series, June 19th versus the Angels is a 1:10 start. So Minnesota is the top team in their division.
Yes, they are.
In the AL Central. And then Anaheim is the second team in your division. So it doesn't get any easier. But we'll see how they,
It's also Charles's birthday. And it's fireworks night.
Star Wars fireworks night. Yeah, I don't really look at the promotions much, but that'll be a good day. Bell will have you covered on that day. I won't be there working. I'll be there as a fan. So we'll look at that. But we got a show to do. So with that being said, we'll look to a team that actually won all their games. Trying to throw. Oh, did we? Oh, no, yeah, sorry. Look at the Storm here, who started ended their homestand, which was a historic homestand, not only in the fact that it was the 8-game homestand, but also the longest of the season. And then they started their 5-game road trip, which is the longest road trip of the season. So
right.
How did that go?
So they've started on a good foot. They've won their first 3 against the Atlanta Dream on the 7th. That was a 72-60 win. Our player of the game is Jewel Lloyd, who had 26 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals. And that was a home game, right?
Yes.
So they kicked off the road series on the 10th against Dallas, and that was a very close win, 89-88. Our player of the game there is Brianna Stewart with 32 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal. And on the 12th against, again, the Dallas Wings, and that one was also close. The winner, we won 84-79. Player of the game was Brianna Stewart with 25 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. Still kept it pretty. The Dallas Wings did a good job of keeping it close there without one of their key players who got ejected. So I think the Storm once again had a 10-point lead at some point in the 3rd, I believe. And then here come the Dallas Wings, of course.
Yeah, I mean, if you sit here and you look at the games last year between these teams, they're all, I think, all 3 games they played were decided by like 5 points total. Yeah. So, the game that Seattle lost at home to Dallas, which was like, it wasn't necessarily a blowout, but Dallas held their lead and they managed it.
Mm-hmm.
That was uncharacteristic to me. So to see these games, how close they were, made more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Dallas to lose Arike Ogunbowale, who kicked a ball into the stands.
Out of frustration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to see them still keep it close. I think we talked about it last week. This is a Dallas team that's young, and they're just going to get better. So, yeah, it's nice to get back-to-back wins over them, but I feel like we're going to see a lot of close contests between these teams for years to come, probably.
And we had quite a treat on the 7th against the Atlanta Dream. Jewel Lloyd's mother actually performed at halftime. So there was a joke about her stealing the show for that game, and Jewel responded with, she always does. But maybe we can credit that performance to Lloyd's great performance as well. So for both of the Dallas Wings games, the injury report was clean, so we did have our full lineup. Hopefully, we keep it that way for some time for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Moving on here for team notes. Today, it was announced that Brianna Stewart wins the Western Conference Player of the Week. Stewie averaged 25.3 points, 8.7 rebounds, and 2.7 assists in 3 games last week as the Storm went 3-0. It was the 10th Player of the Week honor for Stewart in her career after winning the award 3 times last season. And Stewart is having another MVP caliber season and leads the WNBA in scoring with 21.7 points per game, steals with 2.5, efficiency 20.2, and defensive win shares at 0.237. If the season were to end today, Stewart's season averages. What are you doing here? You're messing with my stuff.
What I do?
It keeps jumping around here.
Oh,
Would make her just the second player in WNBA history to post at least 20 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, 2 steals per game, and 0.9 blocks per game in a season behind Cheryl Swoops, who posted those numbers in 2000. Moving on to no league notes. Our record sits at 8-5. We're second in the Western Conference and fourth in the Commissioner's Cup for the Western Conference. Looking ahead, there is a June 14th game at the Minnesota Lynx. That's a 6 p.m. start time. It will be broadcasted on ESPN2, another Commissioner's Cup game. On the 17th at the Connecticut Sun with a 4 p.m. game. And on the 19th at the New York Liberty, 9 a.m., also on ESPN. This feels kind of like a revenge tour in a sense.
Yeah.
The road trip.
I think at that Dream game, when I was writing it up, I was looking at the road trip. I was like, these are all teams that you've played. Minnesota you beat. New York you beat. Connecticut, God, that's a tough game.
Yeah.
But I just want to just quickly look at that Liberty game. 9 a.m. start.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, granted, that's for us when that time is, but yeah, I mean, even if, considering that they're in New York, a noon game, I don't know. That feels weird. So, I don't know. I just, obviously it's nice to have it on ESPN. And I think actually that the June 14th game at Minnesota got upgraded to ESPN, not ESPN2.
Oh, okay.
But just not ideal for like timing wise, right? 9 a.m, you got to get your fans to wake up. It's like the London games with the NFL.
Yeah.
They start at like 6 a.m.
You got to be really dedicated to wake up at that time.
Or just make sure that these games are put on the right times.
Yeah. I wonder how that alters the players' schedule as well, if they have any like
that's
pregame
what I'm
routines.
Curious about, how early that starts. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But they continue their 5-game road trip. And like you said, a lot of familiar teams that you're going to face. So moving over to Sounders news here. I might have jumped the gun early. I know I said last week that the next game is on June 14th. And I was looking forward to recap it.
Yeah.
But obviously that's tomorrow. So in team-related notes, on the 9th, the team loaned forward Samuel Adeniran to San Antonio FC through the end of the 2022 USL Championship season. General Manager Garth Lagerwey said that we're confident that the additional match action and change of environment will help him grow this season. So it just kind of really seems like this was a move where Sam wasn't cracking the starting roster. He wasn't really fitting the rotation at the moment. Why not go and get him some experience somewhere else where he can go and build and grow and just come back and have that additional knowledge and growth. So that's all I think that was. He's been turning up with the Defiance, but I think this is just a chance for him to get better competition. And again, just that growth is what I think that was primarily for. On the 10th, the U.S. men's national team had a match. And so a couple of the Sounders were in that game. Jordan Morris started actually for the men's national team. And I only include this mostly for the fact that there's been speculation about the two Sounders potentially not making the roster if it were to be at 23 players. But it was actually, there was a report coming out today that it would be 26. So could see that there. But also funny that Roldan came on as a sub. Christian Roldan came on as a sub in the 60th minute, and he subbed Jordan Morris off. So I guess kind of a buddy moment there. And so one little thing that's not listed on team notes, and I'm just going off of what information that I have. If this was just me hearing it through some grapevine, I wouldn't mention it.
Yeah.
But I have a couple things that say that Seattle may be confirmed as one of the host cities for the 2026 World Cup. There was a photo that went online of someone that was in the stadium in Lumen Field when they had a banner up, not a banner, they had on the video screen it said World Cup 2026 and some little message on it. I'm just putting that out there so that in case that happens, we
You
can
heard
know
it here
about it.
first.
Just like with the training facility down at Long Acres and the new kit. Putting it out there, keeping that information out there. So, with that being said, the Sounders still sit at a 5-6-1 record at 11th in the Western Conference, and their next matchup is June 14th versus the Vancouver Whitecaps with a 7:30 p.m. start, and then also June 18th versus LAFC at noon. Another noon games mess me up. I don't know. I just have to, like you were saying, I have to figure that plays into your routine, right? Anyway, we do actually have some Kraken things for you.
After
It's been
few weeks.
quite a few weeks where it's like, all right, anyway, moving on. But Belle, what do we kind of some good
On
and some bad?
Yeah, some not so happy news. Chris Deeger has tore his ACL. Deeger tore right ACL in Team Canada's gold medal match of the IIFH Worlds on May 29th, but he has had successful surgery that was on the 6th, and recovery should take 7 to 9 months.
So the only thing with that is that he'll miss the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
For the Kraken. So it's interesting to note that young goalie Joey Decord will probably take that spot, but just with him being young, like I said, and not necessarily having I don't know if he's who they say, hey, with Grubauer, with in hockey at the NHL level and probably at other levels, you want to have a good tandem. You want to have good two guys that you can bounce between. You don't want to run one guy into the ground all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if General Manager Ron Francis brings someone else in who has maybe some NHL experience, just a veteran. Just so I would keep an eye on that. But I would, for our second goalie at the moment, I would put in Joey Decord at that spot.
Yeah. And we also have a new signing. The team has signed Ville Petman to a 2-year deal, 2-year, $791,250 AAV. So that's exciting. Any thoughts on our new signing?
Just like I think 2 weeks ago, there was a guy, it was a younger guy, I believe he was in the Swedish league. Ville, I believe, is from Finland. I think it's just more young guys with talent that have shown things. I believe in the press release, Ron Francis said that he performed well at the highest level in the Finnish leagues. And so it's just, hey, these are guys that are doing well in their respective countries. Why don't we bring them over, give them a shot, probably with our AHL team, and see how they do. Maybe we hit gold. It's part of, I think it's part of that goes into scouting and the whole idea of free agents. Kind of like the NBA, you look at like the European leagues, guys like Luka, right? You could hit gold.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I just believe it's just more. You're also, like we've said before, with the AHL roster, you're going to need to fully fill that roster out. So I would also think that plays into that there. He is 22.
Oh,
so
younger.
He's got his upside.
And moving on to some league news here on the 6th, the Bruins have fired their head coach. Bruce Cassidy is out after 6 seasons. He led Boston to Stanley Cup final in 2019.
Kind of interesting with the last few weeks in firings, right? Because there's a few coaches that have led their teams to Stanley Cup finals in the last few years or just good success.
Isn't good enough anymore.
I don't know what that's about. I think there's more underlying, but I think that's interesting.
Looking ahead here, July 7th, round 1 of the NHL draft. July 8th is rounds 2 to 7 of the draft. And then July 13th, the free agency begins. And so we will move on to our OL right now.
Yeah, so some interesting stuff for the Reign. Obviously, they had a match to play, and we'll get to that in a second, but also some roster-related stuff, some awards. So Reign had a pretty packed week. On the 12th at the San Diego Wave, a rematch of earlier in the season. And obviously these teams are going to play each other a lot just because of their geographical locations. But San Diego's been at the top of the NWSL regular season table for around the beginning of the season. So they've been top dog for a bit. Seattle was able to force a draw after giving up an early goal. Jess Fishlock scored right before half. She'd be of our player of the game with a goal, 90 minutes played, 2 total shots, a 7.9 match rating, drawing 3 fouls, and completing 80% of her passes. San Diego's got a lot of talent. Granted, they are an expansion team, and we've got our things about expansion teams, but I think I was thinking about it when we were getting towards the end of that game. Draws against teams like San Diego, I can accept, but just I didn't get to fully see the attacking stats on it just because of the Mariners and the Seawolves yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't just draw your way through the season. At some point, there has to be like a breakthrough with the scoring, and I know that they're working on that, and that's coming. But that's, I think, when you need to see like a couple goal performance, I think, to see them break through and then hit their stride fully.
Yeah.
But luckily, they'll be able to return home here soon after this matchup, and maybe that can help spark it. So moving on here to team-related news. On the 9th, 2 things happened for the Reign. The first being the Reign acquired $40,000 in allocation money. You see they're split between 2022 and 2023. So the Reign acquired that money from Angel City FC, the other expansion team, in exchange for a 2022 one-year international roster spot. Don't know what Angel City will use that for, but certainly interesting to see how that plays out for them, noting what we received for it and what Angel City might use that for.
Mm-hmm.
Also on the 9th, 4 Reign players were named to the May Best 11. Goalkeeper Fallon Tullis-Joyce, defender Alana Cook, defender Sofia Huerta, and midfielder Rose Lavelle. I mean, you and I have talked about Fallon before. It's no surprise with how good Fallon's been this year to see her up there, but also those 3 I feel like have been earning honors all season. Those three in addition to Fallon have been earning honors all season, so I'm not really surprised to see that, but just again looking to fully see that goal breakthrough to not only help the scoring but also help Fallon out too.
Yeah.
Just to give her some cushion. So continuing forward, this one's not like directly related, but because of when we say OL Reign, right? It used to be Seattle Reign. The Olympic Lyon is the like parent club. They are effectively, they're already a club in Spain, but they're acting like a manager in a way in which they run most of the way that the Reign operates now. Lyon, the parent company, the parent club, was sold to Foster Gillette. It's currently unsure how this will affect the Reign, but it's certainly interesting to note that their parent club was sold, right? So
Yeah.
interesting to keep an eye on that. I don't really think that there will be much that goes on, but still something to just, keep
Look
an
out
eye
for.
on and just note that took place.
Yeah.
In roster news, on the 11th, before the matchup with San Diego, Laura Harvey announced that Kim Little is not with the club yet. She does have her visa. She's working on that. They're going through the process of it, and she should be ready to go next week. But it has been approved. She's just not there yet. And then Jess Fishlock and Megan Rapinoe were both fine coming off of injuries last week, and both did play in that June 11th match. And then also in relation to the Reign, this was announced just an hour ago or so, but the Reign had 4 players named to the U.S. the U.S. women's national team's roster for the June friendlies that they're going to have, which will be interesting. I know that we talked about with Kim Little. She's going to be really helpful with the international breaks that are going to happen. So Alana Cook, Sofia Huerta, Rose Lavelle, and Megan Rapinoe were all named to the U.S. women's national team's roster for June friendlies. So interested to see how that plays out. And I mean, you're losing 2 key defenders. You're losing a really creative midfielder. And Megan is able to impact the game so much. So important losses, but obviously hoping for the best for them in their international appearances. In league-related news, on the 7th, Orlando had a couple of coaches placed on leave. The Pride head coach, Amanda Cromwell, and assistant Sam Green were currently under investigation for alleged workplace misconduct. I don't think much needs to be said about this. Just it's disappointing that, again, in a league that you want to see succeed with these women, great women in it, it's just disappointing to continue to see head coaches, people in these roles that are supposed to be supporting these women continue to be, held accountable for things like this. So we'll keep up on stuff like this, but it's just disappointing to continue to see. The Reign sit at a 2-win, 2-loss, 4-draw record. 4 draws. I mean, 6th in the NWSL table at the moment. Their next match is June 18th versus Angel City FC. That is a 7 p.m. start time later in the day than that Sounders match, as we mentioned, is Juneteenth. Obviously, as we mentioned in the Mariners segment. But if things go well, and as we said with Kim Little's visa, it should be her first home game in Seattle since 2016. So that'll be pretty exciting. If you're new with the Reign and you're watching the show and you're like, who is this girl that they keep talking about? She was very instrumental to women's soccer in this city. And if you're not going to the Mariners games, if you're going to the Sounders game and you have time afterwards, or if you want to support women in sports, let alone women in soccer, I would buy tickets to that game. I would check that out. Angel City's got a lot of talent too. They're a brand new club. They're like strictly women owned. So I'm just giving you reasons here. You should be doing it anyway, but I'm giving you more reasons. So with that being said, we head over to a team that's in the playoffs, and it feels like it's been a while since we actually said something like that. Belle, how did it go over this past week?
Yeah, so they did have a matchup yesterday against the San Diego Legion, which they dominated and won 43-19. Our player of the game is fly half AJ Alatimo, converted every kick, 5 penalty kicks, and 4 conversion kicks. Big game for him.
Yeah, no, he was quite literally perfect, as we said there. But in a game, in playoffs, right? Like with kicks, even in football, kicks are so important. Kicks can win a game. They can lose a game if you miss a kick early on. So he was clinical throughout, was able to just convert everything. He's, I believe, the league's might be a leading point scorer or is up there. And then, yeah, they just dominated. And this was one of my favorite parts with the Seawolves games is the little introduction they do beforehand. Usually it's just pyro, but they did something special for that. So we'll go ahead and show part of that to you. Won't let it all the way run, but I want to show people this. For those that, if you don't follow us on social medias yet,
you should.
This is not only that, but here's a little glimpse of what that entrance was like yesterday. I don't know. I think little things are really cool. Stuff like the entrance is really cool. But I mean, it set the stage for Seattle. They came out, they dominated the first 20 minutes. San Diego got a little bit. Well, let me take that back. San Diego scored a try 3 minutes in. Like, oh, shoot. And then the next, I'd say 17 minutes were all Seattle. San Diego got something before the half, but Seattle still was leading well at half. And then after that, after they come back from halftime, it was just all Seattle, which was
awesome.
Incredible to see. If you don't know, San Diego and Seattle are rivals in this league. They're big rivals. They've got history. They got playoff history. So for Seattle to be in the playoffs, is obviously big, but also to play your rival and to thrash your rival is pretty cool.
Mhm.
But Belle, how did they? We talked
How are
about
they
this.
in this position?
Yes, I think that's
Yeah.
good to say because
So,
obviously we knew that they were going to make playoffs,
mhm.
but then to host, how did we get in that spot?
Due to the LA Giltinis violating league rules, Seattle moves into the number 2 spot in the Western Conference and will host number 3 San Diego Legion, which they did yesterday. So again, that violation by LA is what kind of gave us the opportunity, and it's great to see that the guys were able to maximize on the opportunity. So, no details on what the violation was yet.
Well, the league released what they violated them for, but they didn't give details. They're just like, oh, it was like salary malusage or whatever.
Okay.
But it's like, okay, what was the instance? How did it happen?
Right. Give us the juice.
Yeah.
But again, the Seawolves were able to maximize on the opportunity. That's great. We wish to see them continue here. So their record sits at 10-7, second in the Western Conference with 46 points. And they now face on June 18th the Houston SaberCats at 4 p.m. And that is the MLR Western Conference Championship. Winner heads to the MLR title match. Yeah, this is great. I mean, it's nice to celebrate one of our teams in the playoffs right now.
Well, not only that, but also I'm not going to say who, but it's always frustrating. I think I've said it before, but Big O always says that you want to put paint where it ain't. You want to cover these teams that aren't covered as well as they are. That's why we try to do so much with the Rain, with the Seawolves, with the Storm, right? There was an article about this matchup. This is playoffs, right? This is a team that's already won 2 titles. There's history between these 2 teams. There's so many circumstances here. And this outlet put out an article. This is a major outlet. That's why I'm saying this. And it was just pathetic. It was with the other minor league teams. It was with not other, pardon me. It was with minor league teams. It was with like the Rainiers and like the Mariners, like affiliates. It's like that shouldn't be happening. This is a team that's already won 2 titles. It's a pro team. It deserves more respect.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do here with this. The support from not only the people in the organization, but being there yesterday after the game and just being able to chat with General Manager Pate. He's been really support every game he sees me, even with my mask on, and he comes on, he shakes my hand. I spoke with Tani Tupo a few weeks ago. We did with an interview, and I got to see him for the first time, since then. And he dapped me up, gave me a big hug. The fan base is great. The organization as a whole is very accepting, and so it's just we want to shine as much light as I look at the lights here that we've got in the studio. We want to shine as much light on these teams equally, because that's the whole point of Circling Seattle Sports. That's what we're doing here, So with that being said,
easy transition here.
I don't even think we need to transition. It's Seattle Star of the Week. We went with the Seawolves as a whole. I say Bell, but it's both of us. And with doing that, we've already kind of talked about how they got here and shine their light on them. But I want to look at this matchup against Houston, right? So Houston would have been just right above us. They would have had that 3rd seed in the playoffs. But obviously, with everything taking place, they technically took the 1 seed in the playoffs. So, pardon me. With the win, Seattle now has a 10-7 record. Houston gets their technically a bye week, so they have a 9-7 record. Point differential. A lot of people like to look at point differential, but at the end of the day, sometimes wins are how you get them. So Seattle has an 81 point differential, plus 81, not negative, thankfully. Yeah. Houston's got a 15. So they've played things a little bit closer, right? And then we look at the head-to-head at least. So the first matchup between the teams was earlier in the year, March 12th. Houston won that one barely down in Aviva Stadium in Houston, 21-19. So there's 2, right? And then the last one, this game that we thought the season was over after it because Seattle needed to win, I think, by more than 7. And they were doing that. They were winning. And then in the last few minutes, I think it was like after the 70th minute mark, Houston was able to get some more points on the board and spoil the party. I was like, hey, what the hell? And then Seattle won that one 43-36. I think there needed to be more circumstances than that. But that was the game you thought you were eliminated. So I think this should be a good game. But I was talking to a buddy of mine that he comments on the stuff. I saw him yesterday. He got me the shirt. I appreciate. I mean, I think these are anything playoff related. You know, and I had to wear it on the show.
Yeah,
obviously.
sure.
We're talking to him about it, and I don't want to jinx nobody, and I don't want to put any disrespect on any of the other teams in the league. Knock on the wood. But if we looked at the playoff picture before the Seawolves got in, Austin, I would be scared of because I think they gave the Seawolves their first loss of the year. They kind of ran through the league. LA, you played tough here, and then you went down and beat them to secure a playoff spot. I would be okay. I would feel good about our guys going against them. Houston, we played them. You played them again. You played them close in the first matchup, and then you beat them in the second one. With what you know this, right? If you're a team that sits at home 1 week and you're going to play against a team that's hot coming into the playoffs, that's hot barreling into the playoffs with nothing to lose, playing on house money, are you not a little bit worried?
For sure.
Obviously, you're a professional. You're confident in your abilities, but I am not looking down on the Seawolves. I mean, they came in, they took care of business in LA. They came in with all the circumstances. They had a home game. They got to play in front of their home crowd. They beat up on their rival.
They could take all that with them to Houston now.
Yeah. I mean, again, you're playing with house money. Houston, just like primary player-wise, they have the 9th highest point scorer in MLR in David Koetzer with 70 points on the year, and the 3rd overall try scorer in MLR with Dean Muir, who has 10 on the year. So just want to look at Dean Muir. David Koetzer might be guys to keep an eye on in this game on the 18th. I believe all these games are going to be on the Rugby Network, and luckily they are free. So it's not like some services you got to pay for. So if you want to watch this game, Saturday's a busy day, right? I'll be at one doubleheader. Bell will be over across the street.
Yep.
There'll be 4 games in that little span there between the two
Little area.
stadiums. The Seawolves will be playing at 4 o'clock, so I'll have that game on.
Of course.
So that'll be a lot going on. But a tip of the cap to the Seawolves, not only for making this far, but as I said, the just welcoming community that they've had, and I'm excited for you next season to see that.
Yeah,
because obviously they won't play any more home games. They're going to win this one down in Houston, and even if they get it to the MLR title game, they won't be able to host that. So next season we'll get on that. But they've been great. So with that being said, I want to take the time to apologize for my light cough. My bronchitis is back.
It's not COVID, guys.
No, I've been tested 3 times. I'm a little bit smart. I know some things. Was I wrong about Russell Wilson being traded?
Yes.
Sure. But, with that being said, always want to thank all of the people that we've got in studio. Salman, I mean, we showed him last week with looking all fly
Dapper.
at the Emmys. I mean, he's looking fly today, too. Matt's in the building. Matt's back there. Obviously, we've got our photographers. Oh, with that being said,
New photographer.
Quentin with Bird's Eye Visuals did a great job yesterday at the Mariners game. Got to work with him. Hope Liv's doing better. We'll see her soon. Matthew Bermudez, you know him?
Slightly.
Yeah, Matt does good. We're just great people to work with here at Converge. So with that being said, we'll see you next week for the next episode. What is that? The
3rd of June? 3rd episode of June, is it? Is it?
Yeah,
the
3rd
second
episode of June. I thought you were saying the 3rd of June.
No, I
like
don't
the
know what the
20th
date is.
of June. But we've got a Mariners game to go to here pretty soon. We'll get out of your way. Do whatever you can to make today a great day.